we feel like we are detached from our bodies. And so the work of stepping out of emotional outsourcing is to come back into connection with our body's brilliance. Early on, we learned that being attuned to others was safer than being attuned to self. That being who we thought they wanted us to be was so much more important than being our authentic self. And so we negate our own feelings, our own thoughts, our own wants. And I work with women of every age, but I talk to women in their 40s and 50s who have absolutely no idea who they are, what they want for dinner, much less for the rest of their lives, right? The nest is suddenly empty. And wait, who am I? What is this life? What is this body? Right? We've been so used to contorting ourselves in every way to try to fit someone else's story.
Hey everyone, welcome to Strong Mind, Strong Body. I'm so glad you joined me here today. I am so excited for our topic. We are going to talk about something called emotional outsourcing. And I think it's an amazing term for something that you are soon to learn about. But if you feel like you sometimes get stuck in patterns of overgiving or perfectionism or people pleasing, this episode is for you. And even if you don't, maybe you know someone who does. So I'm your host, Angie Miller. And today I have a very special guest. Her name is Bea Albina. And she has written a book about emotional outsourcing. And it fascinated me so much that I thought she would be a perfect guest to come on and shine her light with my audience. So Bea, I'm going to bring you in and have you introduce yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's great. And I was so fascinated by that topic and just by the way that you describe something that I know a lot of my clients have been caught up in those patterns. I know I personally have been caught up in those patterns. And so I was super drawn to your site. As a matter of fact, I showed it to my daughter and I was like, look, this is speaking my language. And I may or may not have passed that on to her.
Oh,
So let's go to that. You know, there are so many people, like I said in the opening, that they feel stuck in patterns of perfectionism, or they feel like they need to people please, but they can't always name why they keep doing it. And so you gave it this term, emotional outsourcing. So tell us first, what is it? How would you describe it?
yeah. So emotional outsourcing is a term I coined as an umbrella term for our codependent, perfectionist, and people pleasing habits. I never really liked those terms. They never really felt right. Like they didn't get to the core of what's going on. And so emotional outsourcing is when we chronically and habitually source our sense of the three essential human needs: safety, belonging, and worth. And we source it from everyone and everything outside of ourselves instead of from within at a great cost to ourselves.
Okay, so I want to pause with
Yeah,
that for a
let's
second.
break it down.
Yeah, because the minute you said, because I thought, okay, source ourselves. And I thought, okay, but what exactly are we sourcing? And you put it perfectly: safety, belonging, and our worth. And in
Yeah.
a way, it's almost like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? That sense of safety and belonging. And then, but you also move it into our sense of self-worth. And what a mic drop on that one, because I do absolutely think that we do that a lot in our work. Like, you know, well, if we get a raise, then gee, we're worthy at work. Or if we get validated by a partner, a significant other, then all of these things where we're looking to other people to tell us that we belong or we matter or we are enough.
Right.
So I'm going to give it back to you.
Yeah. And I think it's really lovely to get a compliment. It's delightful to get external validation, you know? But when we make that the only thing that's grounding us, then our sense of self and safety and okayness in the world, we're handing it over to often to strangers, right? To people on the bus or your boss or someone saying that you're good enough, right?
Yeah.
And so I also created this term because so often we feel like we are detached from our bodies. And so the work of stepping out of emotional outsourcing is to come back into connection with our body's brilliance. Early on, we learned that being attuned to others was safer than being attuned to self. That being who we thought they wanted us to be was so much more important than being our authentic self. And so we negate our own feelings, our own thoughts, our own wants. And I work with women of every age, but I talk to women in their 40s and 50s who have absolutely no idea who they are, what they
Mhm.
want for dinner, much less for the rest of their lives, right? The nest is suddenly empty and wait, who am I?
Mhm.
What is this life? What is this body? Right? We've been so used to contorting ourselves in every way to try to fit someone else's story.
Mhm.
And so when we can name it as emotional outsourcing, we can step out of the old story that there's something wrong with us, that we're broken, that we're defective, that there's an issue with our character. And instead, we can see that developing these sets of skills was brilliant. And so the first thing I do in my work is to support my clients to actually really celebrate their young selves, right? If your 5-year-old self was such a little smarty pants that she realized my parents don't love me as much if I'm too loud or if I'm too quiet or if I'm too fat or too thin, if I don't get an A plus or if, right, whatever it was, and that little kiddo was brilliant enough to change the way you presented so you could get fed and praised and all the things that kids need because they are inherently dependent animals. Well, then good for you, little one. Well done. And now we get to break the cycle by shifting the locus of our presence.
Yeah.
Right. So the antidote to emotional outsourcing is developing the internal capacity to really feel your own feelings without making them anyone else's responsibility. To,
Oh,
right.
and I would say also to not, um, yeah, that, I guess that was to not make them other people responsible, but also to accept them as they are and to accept, like you're kind of saying, like that's a journey. And what also came to my mind, Bea, was that we don't just get it from our parents, we get it from teachers and educators, and all throughout our lives, we sort of
Yeah.
toe the line, if you will.
Yeah.
Well, I learned that this teacher expects this and this teacher expects this. And so in this class, I'm allowed to be funny and have character. And in this class, I need to be quiet and just be a good listener. And then we get bosses like that. And we're constantly almost like, if anybody remembers Gumby, we're always bending
Yeah.
like Gumby to
Yeah.
adapt to your current environment, to
Yeah.
where, to your point, and I don't think it's just women, but I
Certainly
think that,
not.
like you said, kids leave the nest or you get to a certain age and you go, I have spent so many years trying to figure out what everybody else wants from me. I don't even know what I want from me or what I need or what brings me joy because, for sometimes we teach people that we are always available to them. And then when they're not available to us, we get spicy or emotional, or I'm always there for you. Why aren't you there for me? And then the resentment
Right.
kicks in. But we never taught them that, right?
Right. But we were taught to self-sacrifice.
Yes.
Right. And my passion is working with women because that's my lived experience. And because I think the patriarchy plays a huge role in this, especially within so many religious cultures where women are taught to be selfless, to not have opinions, to stay humble,
Mhm.
right? And to really be subservient in our own minds,
Yeah.
right? And to really put ourselves last and last and last and last. And so we need to learn how to offer care and love, which are beautiful things, but without taking on other people's emotional states,
Yeah.
right? And that's the real shift.
Right. And I think that's a lot of hard work after a lifetime of, it's almost like unlearning to relearn, wiping the slate clean. Um,
Yeah. Well, that's what we're literally doing in the nervous system,
right.
right? We're rewiring old neural pathways because the brain comes up with heuristics, shortcuts, right? The quickest path from A to Z is this way. And so that's what the brain does. And so we need to actually fully rewire that neural pathway so that we can start to think, feel, and experience self and the world in an utterly new way. And that takes a lot of work to rebuild that felt embodied sense of safety with yourself, which is why I bring somatics so heavily into my work.
Yeah. Well, and it makes so much sense because we do get out of our bodies and into our minds. And then when we do that,
Yeah.
we forget how to even experience our bodies in the present moment. And
Yeah.
sometimes too, there is going back to the whole, there can be shame around the body or, right? So it can be difficult to lean into the body and the physical self.
Yeah.
But I have a question for you. You connected perfectionism, people pleasing, and codependency under one umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious how these are actually the same, but they show up in different ways. I see a connection for sure, but I want to hear it with your voice and your experience. How do you connect those three?
Yeah. So they're all about that outward gaze. We're the locus of control, of truth, of agency. Your core identity isn't about you, right? So if you're people pleasing, it's keeping everybody happy. And if you're you have perfectionist habits, it's all about meeting some high standard that is generally not our own. Or we're so scared that we're going to beat ourselves up, we demand a certain kind of exigence from ourselves. And so too with codependent thinking, it's fully outsourcing, right? Everyone else's emotions are my responsibility. And my emotions I can't control. Everyone else caused them. So it's this
Mhm.
abnegation of responsibility because we don't feel powerful. We don't feel our agency. We don't feel our strength. And so in all three ways of experiencing emotional outsourcing, your emotional wellness and your capacity to be okay on any given Wednesday has to do with everyone and everything outside of you, not any inherent truth within you. And that's what we need to heal,
Right.
right? Is to make
Because
you your own North Star.
Right, because how many times do we as parents or, I know I've been guilty of this,
Yeah,
if one of my daughters isn't happy, I'm not happy. If, or if they're going through something, and to a degree that is part of parenting, but sometimes it can be taken too far to where you can't find joy if they're not finding joy, to where there's almost too much, because there can be codependency, not just in intimate relationships, but there can be codependency in child and parent relationships too, in the sense that you can get too attached to their emotional well-being or not.
100%. Yeah, and that's where I see it so much is in family dynamics. We can also see it at work. We also see it in the PTA. We can see it in a neighborhood association. We can see it with friends, right? We can see this structure in which we don't feel okay in our lives unless the whole system around us is reifying that.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
okay, it's like we walk around and go, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? Okay, well, if you're okay, I'm okay."
That's exactly
And
what I say, that we have a spotlight on our head.
yeah, and it's
Yeah,
exhausting,
of
right? It's
course.
exhausting and it keeps you in this constant state of fight or flight. So, because you're always kind of you're kind of walking across a field and if there's something you're going to detonate or something's going to go off, it's because of someone else's emotions, but it's really you've lost sight of where you are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and our nervous system, so we have this window of capacity or tolerance in our nervous system, which is our ability to be with the present moment, to flow with life without getting dysregulated, right? Without leaving self, without leaving grounding, without leaving presence. And when you're living in emotional outsourcing, your window of tolerance for life is so small. It's so teeny, teeny, tiny. And the smallest thing can poof, throw you over the edge into having dysregulation in your nervous system. So being activated, all up, adrenalized in fight or flight, or collapsed, disconnected down in dorsal. That happens so quickly and so easily because, again, your nervous system's core root is not in how do I feel? What's going on in my body? What are my values? What's in my integrity? What's in my dignity? It's all out here. And so you're talking to a friend and they make a little face in the middle of your story, and all of a sudden you're not in the flow of your experience. Wait, you didn't like what I said? What do you think? Did I say something wrong? I did something wrong. You're mad at me. Are you mad at me? and we're out of self so quickly. So it impacts all of our relationships across the board. And yeah, keeps our nervous system really dysregulated, which is why I bring somatics or body-based practices. It's why I bring the nervous system work, limbic system work, all this work into this work to heal and overcome emotional outsourcing, because it's not just a mindset problem.
Yeah. Well, and it's almost putting the body back together again, almost like insulating yourselves against all of the external noise or stimuli and saying, look, you have the tools to check in with you, but you're going to
Mm,
have to ground yourself for a little bit. You're going to have to step away from what everyone else thinks and feels. And every time you want to check in with somebody else, check in with you. Take a moment to breathe through your own lived experience in that moment, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's unique work for many, many people.
Yeah. Thank
So,
you. Yeah.
speaking of the nervous system and how emotional outsourcing lives in the nervous system, not just the mind, kind of going along with that, then when someone knows intellectually, okay, that they need to say no, or that they need to set boundaries, or that they're too
Mm.
caught up in everyone else, they've got their octopus feelers and they're stuck to everyone else. That's what I tell my clients. I'm like, it's like you got little octopus feelers and you're just stuck to everybody, and you only know how you feel based on how they feel.
Right.
So, but they say they know intellectually, I got to stop this. This is a train wreck. I feel like a
Hmm.
train wreck. But their body is so resistant to that. What do you think is happening in the moment?
Well, I mean, resistance is just protection. That's all that resistance ever is the body saying, I'm not so sure about this. This is probably a terrible idea. And as your nervous system, I'm charged with one job and one job only, which is your survival. And so you're doing something we've never done before, which is say no to our parent, set a boundary at work, etc. Nah, no, it's like snuggling a lion. Don't do it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're probably going to end up somebody's lunch if you do that. And so the nervous system's hitting the proverbial brakes really hard to keep us from doing things that will take us out of that window of tolerance, because that window of tolerance is known safety. And so that's why I have a protocol. It's called the Brave Protocol, where we bring ourselves back into somatic presence when we're not activated, so that when we are activated, when something does feel stressful, we've got a set of tools. Can I share that protocol?
Yes. And can I share something before you say this?
Yes, please. How fun.
Because you're getting me very excited.
Yay.
Something that came to my mind as a person who may or may not struggle with some of the things that you're talking about, but we won't tell anybody.
We
Wink,
won't
wink.
tell anybody. It's just the two of us
Um,
hens in here. Don't worry about it.
Absolutely. But something that came to my mind is when you do start to get into your own self and when you do start to pay attention, that can be a scary place to be, because it's not a familiar place. And when you start to recognize the difficulty of your own emotions and lived experience and where you are in the world versus, first of all, it can be hard to extract. It can be hard to get the feelers off of everybody and actually know what you're feeling versus what they're feeling and how much you're bringing in or not. But secondly, it can be scary. And so, working with somebody in this process, I think is extremely important, because getting in touch with how you feel can make you crash and burn if you're not prepped for it, right?
Agreed.
So, and it can also cause a lot of things to have to change as a result,
Yeah.
right?
When we stop people pleasing, people aren't pleased.
Oh, they are not. And when we
They're
set
not
boundaries, they're
pleased.
like, hold on here.
Wait
Why
a
are you
second.
being a blah, blah, blah?
Cut it
And
out. Yep.
what do you mean you're saying no? So
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. John Bradshaw talks about the change back demands, right? I liked you before. And people who say I liked you
Oh,
before, they liked you before when you were compliant to them.
change back demands. Who is
Yeah.
that?
John Bradshaw.
Oh, I'm writing that one down.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
like
yeah.
that.
Oldie but goodie. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
go on and tell me your formula or
Oh,
your
right. Well, so something that came to mind from what I love this vibe, by the way. I think you're so cool. And I love how we're really getting each other nerdy excited. So fun. You made me think of two of the most central tenets of somatic experiencing, which is a big part of my training, titration and pendulation. So titration simply means adding something potentially upsetting one drop at a time. So if you're making salad dressing, you're not going to dump a whole lemon juice in there, right? You're going to add a little bit of lemon and taste it, and a little bit of lemon and taste it, because an acid can overwhelm quickly. That's what we do with trauma. That's also what we do with things like felt sensation, when it's like, oh, I have a human body. I have a body from the neck down. No, thank you. I just have thoughts, right? We got to go really slowly, little by little, so we don't overwhelm the nervous system. Pendulation is, you can picture a pendulum swinging, right? And so we do a lot of work, and this is where I start with all of my clients, starting with the positive, or if positive is too challenging, starting with something neutral and really getting a felt sense in the body of what it's like when we are doing something that feels good enough, safe enough, okay enough. And once we have that felt sensation, and it can be, what does it feel like in your body when when you're on vacation and you open your hotel room door onto the beach that first morning and you just go, let's feel that. And for someone who's not used to feeling, that can be a way easier entryway than, tell me about your traumas with your mother. Hello, not going there, right? And so we really start by going where it's warm, going where it's easeful for the nervous system to get that felt sensation, so that we can then go a little bit towards what's challenging and come back to ease. And a little bit towards what's challenging and come back to ease. And it's really the only way to do this work. People want catharsis, right? We've been trained to sort of want the peak experience and the big thing, the big change, but it's not sustainable. It doesn't create change that lasts. And my goal is that my clients don't need me, right? Is to teach them the skills and help their nervous systems to regulate, to ground, to settle, so they can live their lives without the heaviness of emotional outsourcing. So,
Well, and I tell my clients that all the time. If I'm doing my job, both as a therapist and as a trainer, you are not going to need me. I want to empower you. But I also want to say two little things about what you said.
Yeah.
One was when you said, tell me about your trauma with your mama. I have to say, just because I have to put it out there, there's a lot of mommy badgering out there. So it could be, tell me about your childhood trauma, or tell me about your trauma with your papa, or tell me about your trauma with your friends, or tell me about. There's a lot of pinning it on a person, whereas there's a whole system when we're growing up. So I just had to put that plug in. But the other thing is that I would invite people who are very physical bodied and able, who are listening to this. You might all be thinking, well, I'm in my body all the time. I am very aware of my body. But I think, Bea, and you could maybe give light to this, what I describe to people is, yes, and there's a difference between being in your body and knowing what your body can do and how it can perform. But that's expectation based, and that's physical felt sense.
Correct.
To me, the difference in somatics is being with your body, being comfortable in your body enough to where you can slow down.
Yeah. So somatics is the study and practice of embodied awareness. So it's the direct experience of your body from the inside out, rather than how it looks or functions externally. So it's about sensing, feeling, and responding to your internal landscape in real time, rather than overriding or ignoring your body's signals, which, let's be real, most, if not all of us, have been conditioned to do that. So somatics at its core is really about your relationship with your body, your nervous system, your history as lived by your body, and all of the ways that shapes your movement, your posture, your emotions, and your responses to the world, versus exercise and fitness and conditioning. I'm a CrossFit gal, right? I love working out, but that focuses on external goals, strength, endurance, flexibility, lifting things and putting them back down. Stretching focuses on lengthening muscles. There's so much of what we do in the gym and in fitness that's about the body performing. And somatics is an internal practice that, like you said, is about the body being. And so, yeah, for those of us who are temporarily able-bodied, because let's be honest, you can be very present to how your body can perform. I know what I can Olympic lift. I know what I can do, like how much I can lift in a snatch these days. But it's really different to be moving through life with your presence being located inside your body.
Yeah.
It changes the way we relate to everything. And what it allows is for us to be responsive in life instead of reactive, right?
Oh,
Because,
yeah.
yeah, our nervous system isn't running the show. Our inner children aren't running the show. We are in presence as our watcher, right? And so we have more choicefulness. And so as someone who loves fitness, what somatics returns to us is agency and choicefulness around how we want to experience the world, how we want to be in the world, how we want to meet the world, and how we want to conceptualize of self in the world. It's a really different thing. I'm so glad that you brought that up, especially on a show that talks about fitness.
Right.
Yeah,
And I
really
just wanted
important.
to put that out there because I
Yeah,
think that there
brilliant.
is that kind of disconnect of what are you talking about? Of course, I understand my body and know my body. And
Totally.
again, yes, and. So let's talk about relationships
Oh, yeah.
because if I were going to rewrite the whole show, I'm not going to lie. I would kind of go a little bit of Dr. Ruth, a little bit of, no, anyway. So let's talk about relationships. How does
Yes.
emotional outsourcing show up? Well, I would do it in a fitness way, of course, but how does emotional outsourcing show up in intimate partnerships?
Yeah.
And why do people who give the most? And this question is the one that I was most excited about. So watch out. Why do people who give the most end up feeling the most disconnected? Because gosh
Oh,
darn it, if that ain't the truth, I'm
yeah.
sorry that it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the simple answer is because you've left yourself, because you're not in yourself. You've given beyond your capacity to actually give. So you've left presence. And you're so focused on that externalizing that there's no you left. So of course you feel the most disconnected. So let's look at some concrete examples so people can say, oh, darn it, it's me. So in relationships, emotional outsourcing shows up as feeling very deeply responsible for everyone's emotions. You can't relax if someone's upset. You feel compelled to fix it, right? Because you see emotions as problems. Because if someone else is upset, it's you have to fix it. So no one should have big feelings. Apologizing constantly, even when you didn't do anything wrong and you're not even Canadian, just to keep the peace. Avoiding conflict at all costs, even if it means lying, downplaying your needs, stuffing down your feelings, wiggling on the truth, feeling resentful, but not expressing it because you don't think your feelings count as much as someone else's, right? Like they couldn't possibly be as important, right? So don't worry about it. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Taking on a therapist role in relationships. So always listening, supporting, and problem solving, but not being in a reciprocal, interdependent, mutuality-based connection with people. So you never actually get support. And a large part of that is the I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm strong, I'm fine. Right?
Okay.
That like, yeah, we take on that rugged individualism that comes from our socialization and conditioning. And so we create this this role, right? This sense of self where we're seen as too strong to need help. And so we're always giving. I mean, back to your question, why do we end up disconnected? We're depleted from giving and never having that reciprocity. You can feel like you're the only one who sees the real potential in a partner. We love a fixer-upper, right? We love to date with or marry, just be with, connect with people we think we can improve, we can help. You know, he's never really wanted to wear clean underwear, but you know, I'm really going to change that. Right? Tell me it's
It's
not
so
true,
true. It's like a
right?
project. We marry a
We love
project.
a project. We love a
Oh my
project, right?
goodness.
Because it's this whole blank canvas on which we can prove our worth.
Oh,
Look, this man had never brushed his teeth, not once. But now he's brushed once
look at
in our
me.
40 years
Look what
together.
I've
Look at how
achieved.
amazing I
Yeah.
am. Meanwhile, we then fall into that nagging, right? And then we self-abandon even more. And then we don't like ourselves because you don't want to be that person. But because your sense of safety is built on them changing, what are you going to do except nag and nag and nag? Because you can't be safe if they don't change, but they won't change if you don't nag because they don't want to change. Oh my gosh. How exhausting.
Or you don't nag, you stuff it. And then
Oh, sure. That's super fun too.
suppression's the
Right.
boiling pot that's really going to take you down.
Oh,
You don't
right.
nag because you don't even think it's worth it, because you've learned over time that it's
Right.
not worth it. So you suppress. And then the next thing you know, you're so suppressed that you're either constantly agitated and in fight or flight, or you're constantly down and depressed. And
Right.
so either way, it comes back to you being the faulty individual, when really it was because you pinned your, tail on the donkey on trying to fix somebody else. So yeah,
There we
I feel
go.
like we could probably talk for days, weeks, and months. But instead, because I know that people have a window of tolerance on what they can absorb, and I want them to absorb this and
Yeah.
take small, samples of information and give it some thought.
Yeah.
So, kind of before we close up, Bea, if you had a word of wisdom or a
Oh.
tip for somebody who is like, I am all
Mm.
in, give me a takeaway of one thing I can do today to make myself feel better inside and to feel more connected to me.
Mm. I thought you were going to ask for like a word. And so the word I was thinking of was presence.
Okay.
And so I think to then extrapolate from that, what's a thing you can do? I don't know about feel better, because that's never my goal, right? It's to just feel. That's where we need to start. And so I would recommend, if you're new to this, you start with a presence practice that is so low stakes, it is unlikely to trigger or activate your nervous system. Because, like you said, for most of us who have not been present in our bodies, being present in our bodies is super duper scary, and that's understandable. And so I want to invite you to do the morning beverage practice. So it really is as simple as, when you wake up in the morning, ask your body what it wants. Do you want water? Do you want juice? Do you want coffee? Do you want tea? Do you want a smoothie? What do you want?
What if it says I want vodka?
Well, you can let it know it wants vodka, and like any toddler mom will tell you, we don't give in to certain demons, right?
I'm kidding. I don't. I threw that out there to be obstinate.
No, I
Okay, I
love
was
it. I
just being
love it.
funny.
But like,
So,
yeah, every toddler wants to run in the street. My cat wants to climb the bookshelf. We get to be the grown
mhm.
up. But what you get to say in that moment is also use that moment as a way to have compassion and say, oof, body, you want to check out, huh? You want some vodka. You want to like not be present and buffer against this reality. Maybe put a hand on your heart and take a breath into that. Oof, what an intense thing to want vodka first thing in the morning, right? Like, body, I hear you and I love you. And that's a lot of information you just gave me,
Yeah. Well, and
right?
really, I was being silly, but
Oh, I
truthfully,
know, but it's
there are
also
people who are going to wake up, and that is going to be such an uncomfortable experience that
right.
any type of addiction is going to be the first thing their body says that they
Of
want.
course. And what a
Um,
gorgeous gift to listen in and then to get to ask yourself follow-up questions. Because most of us, I mean, the core of emotional outsourcing is living from default and a lack of intention, right? We're habitual, we're chronically habitual, go, go, go. And so this practice is deeply disruptive in its simplicity, because it invites us to slow down and say, huh, vodka. Okay. How can I bring in compassion? How can I bring in empathy? How can I be kind to myself and not be another bully in my life saying, oh, God, Susan, really vodka at 8 in the morning? God, what's wrong with you? Right? Instead, we can say, okay, you want to check out. I get that.
mhm.
Let's take one slow, deep breath, long, slow out to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. And bring in compassion. But it's these tiny, tiny bites of presence in low stakes environments, right? Every time you go pee, take a slow breath as you wash your hands,
Mhm.
right? Every time you put the kettle on, take a breath and begin to build presence in your body, your presence of sensations, feeling your feet on the floor. And it's these tiny, tiny, titrated, pendulated steps that help us to come back into our bodies. And once we're in our bodies, so much opens up. So I really appreciate that question. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And I also say sometimes just give yourself a hug, feel your hands on your own body.
Oh,
What does it
sure.
feel like to soothe yourself in this moment
Yeah.
versus waiting for someone else, which is a hug
Yeah.
is wonderful from others. And we can
Yeah.
also give ourselves a hug. So,
Oh.
so Bea, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for, before we go though, I want you to be able to share with people how they can reach you and your book.
So, my book is called End Emotional Outsourcing: How to Overcome Your Codependent, Perfectionist, and People Pleasing Habits. It comes out September 30th and it is in pre order now. You can learn more and grab your copy at Beatriz, Beatriz, albina.com/book. And of course, there's presents and treats and gifts to say, thank you so much for pre-ordering the book. It's really helpful, especially for new authors. So thank you.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much. And thanks to our NASM audience. Thanks to all of you listening. Thanks to all of you interested in a healthy mind and a healthy body. And thank you so much for reaching out, telling me your stories, and inviting different episodes and topics. I'll see you next week.